don't you start by telling us your name?
Paul Wagner.
And how long have you been a member at St. John?
Since the late 80s.
So what brought you to St. John?
Well, I moved to Mansfield in 84, 85, and there was 2 churches here at that time. Well, one of them was just a small church, and I almost went to it, but I decided on St. John.
We're glad that you did.
Do what?
I said we're glad you did choose St. John over the other little church. So tell me a little bit about how your faith started.
When I was young, well, I was baptized, and I had 5 sisters, and my mother and dad and sisters, we all went to church every Sunday morning. So that was the beginning of it. And as time went on, it grew and grew like everybody's faith should.
What's a favorite memory from childhood about church and family? That's not on the paper.
My favorite memory about any church is being able to work at the church and do things for the Lord.
And do you still do that today?
A little bit more than I need to.
And a little less than we need you to, but that's okay. What's your favorite job to do for the church? You volunteer to do so many things.
It don't bother me.
Any of them, huh?
Right.
Tell me a little bit about the crosses you make. That's a cool ministry of yours, and that's not just at church. You do that in your own life.
Well, I don't know how it actually started, but probably 4 or 5 years ago, Corey and I sat down and talked about the confirmation kids, and that's when I decided I was going to make them all a cross for confirmation. And that's when I started with them. And then a year or 2 later, I said something. They need one for a baptism, so I made a real small one for baptism. And I said I'd like to see the ones get baptized get a large cross for confirmation. And then I said to myself, I'll be 91 or 2 years old, so I doubt if I'll be making them that long.
There's a chance. There's a chance. You've had some health issues. You've had some cancer in your life. Tell us a little bit about how God got you through that.
In 2009, around Christmas time, I had some bumps come up on each side of my face. And I always had a physical in January the 1st of February. And it was already scheduled, so I didn't worry about it. So I went to the doctor in my appointment. They did blood work. When I went in to see him, which him and I were close. I mean, we'd tell anybody, each other anything, you know. And I went in, and this is the very words he told me. He said, "Boy, you got cancer." So that's where it started. And he said, "I will get you an appointment, get a biopsy, and get you started with an oncologist." So that was all done. By April, I was on chemo. I had 6 months of chemo. And the doctor also told me, which I've never told anybody, I told Tim and Perkins and I, Pastor Tim, we both talked about it one time. The doctor said I had stage 4 cancer. But I didn't tell Glory or my kids because I knew it'd be all over, you know. So that's one thing I never said. Never said anything, you know. Because I had faith that I'd be okay.
So tell me about your journey with some of those doctors. I mean, they took you across the country.
Well, I had 6 months of treatments. And after the treatments, my daughter in California had met a guy, a doctor there, that was working on the cure for mantle zone non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is what I had. And they wanted me to come out there because he wanted to see me. So I decided I was just going to retire. I sold my business. I didn't sell it, I just closed it. And then Gloria and I went all the way up to Colorado. We went through Colorado, but we went to Canada, went to Bouchard Gardens and everything, and come back and stopped at San Francisco, Stanford Hospital.
Paul, you do know that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right?
No.
Took the CNET crowd.
But I sat there and talked to the doctor, and my daughter and Gloria was in the 2 chairs, like all of them have 2 chairs. I was on the table, and he talked to me a little bit, and he said, there's nothing I can really do, but let me call the transplant doctor in and let him talk to you. So a little later, his nurse come in and brought a paper about that thick, telling you everything what would go on in transplant. And then he come back in and said, he's off today, but he's coming in to see you. So I sat on that table probably 3 hours that day.
No. Those aren't known for being comfortable.
But we discussed it all, and he told me to go home, read the book, and let him know. But they told me I had to take one more round of chemo because I still had too many cancer cells in my body. So we come back, I went on, took 6 more months of chemo, and the transplant was like $900,000, and my insurance would only pay $3 million. And I was going to turn 65 anyway. So, and the 6 months was just at the time I was turning 65. So we went on Medicare and got a supplement and everything, and went back, had the transplant, and in 1 week in the hospital, because they take your immune system down to nothing, well, almost nothing, I had a T and B cell transplant. So they took some T and B cells from my sister, which was a 97% match of mine, and then they inject them into me.
So what brought you peace through all of this?
Always. It is what it is, the way I look at it, and the Lord's taking care of me. And I've had chemo pills twice since that. I'm on them now, so I'm fine. It's one thing I don't worry about.
There you go. Has anything changed as a result of your cancer diagnosis and treatment?
Not really, because I've always been not worry about a whole lot and just keep trucking.
Keep going. What would you have advice or a comment you would want to share with someone who got diagnosed with cancer?
Just trust in the Lord, because without trust and have faith in it, you will hurt yourself more than anything.
Anything else you want to say, Paul?
The only thing I'd say is that I just hope everybody has faith in God and trust in Him, and they will go a long ways just with that. Because faith will, just like a book just come out, faith will move mountains, and it's true.